So what I hear you saying is kind of you relate kind of the term presencing to an experience that actually shifts how you operate from the heart. Kind of it has to do kind of with the heart dimension on the one hand, and then on the other hand, it has to do with the social field, kind of with how.
Yes.
Could you? But the story you shared was really mostly about yourself.
That's right.
So I wonder, could you maybe share a story or talk a little bit about how that plays out more on a collective dimension?
Sure. So first I want to give you a metaphor that I learned from my plumber. So in mid-February, there was snow all over the ground. Everything felt frozen. And my pipes clogged. So I call the plumber. Plumber comes trudging through the snow, and he says, the roots of the tree have grown into the pipes, and that's what's clogging the pipes. And this explanation was baffling to me for a couple of reasons. One, because there was snow on the ground. There was absolutely, as far as I could see, nothing growing anywhere. There was several feet of snow on the ground. The other thing was there was no tree because the tree had died last year and we had cut it down. And not only had we cut it, the base off, but they had pulled the roots out of the ground. And so I said to him, there's no tree and it's frozen solid. He said, spring started 2 weeks ago. He said, I can smell the roots growing. And the tree that you pulled out, it still has roots in the ground. And for the next 3 years, those roots will continue to grow, even though you've pulled out the stump. And you have to pay attention to that. This was the most amazing thing to me. It was so helpful in thinking about the social field, because here we are, the ground, if you're not paying attention, the ground is frozen. But if you are paying attention, you can smell the roots growing. And even when you've pulled the big chunk out, and for me that was just a perfect metaphor about racism, right? After you've pulled that big chunk out, after you've gotten rid of all of the laws, or at least some of the laws, there are still roots growing. And you've got to pay attention to that. You've got to sense it. You've got to understand it. And so this, to me, that's like, the idea of a social field can be very abstract. But when you think about the ground you are standing on in winter and the seeds either beginning to germinate or continuing to grow, it gives you a whole other perspective on the ground you're standing on and what is possible and what must be attended to. So that's the background, right? So what does that mean when you are in a room, and what does that mean when you are trying to shift society to a beloved community? How do you think about that? Because then, in any given situation, the role of the individual is really important, but the role of the collective has to be attended to. And I think in our society, the idea of leadership is the heroic individual who takes charge, who makes hard decisions. But what I've learned from presencing, actually, is that the role of the leader and of leaders is to attend to the frozen ground, to feel the seeds growing, and to figure out how to cultivate that field, capturing social reality creation in flight. That sounds very technical, but this idea that how you pay attention in any given context can actually shift what is happening in the room. It is knowing that the roots are growing.